It is with great pleasure that my wife and I welcome you to Windsor Castle on this, your second state visit to the United Kingdom. This relationship, which, with good reason...
Windsor Castle has seen centuries of power, conflict, and ceremony, but on this night, it wasn't history that filled its halls. It was precision. A state banquet was about to begin, one of the most carefully controlled events in the entire British monarchy. Every step, every placement, every name on every golden card had been prepared weeks in advance. Not hours. Weeks. Because in this world, nothing is accidental. Not the lighting. Not the seating. Not even the silence between conversations. And especially not where a child sits. Princess Charlotte, daughter of the Prince and Princess of Wales, had a designated seat at the table. Not just as a formality, but as a signal. A quiet declaration of her place in the future of the monarchy. She was not just attending. She was being positioned. Introduced into the architecture of royal duty. But what no one expected was that before the guests fully settled, before the cameras began their final framing, something went wrong. A chair, meant for Charlotte, was occupied by someone else. At first, no one reacted. Because in the royal household, reactions are not immediate. They are measured. But inside the palace system, silence does not mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening at once. And within seconds, word began to move through the room. Something had to be corrected. And it had to be corrected fast. To an outsider, a state banquet looks like tradition. To those inside, it is engineering. A machine of hierarchy disguised as elegance. Hundreds of staff coordinate every detail with surgical precision. Tables are measured to the centimeter. Glassware is aligned according to long-standing protocol. Even the floral arrangements are placed with symbolic intent. But the most important element is not what you see. It is where you sit. Because seating is language. It tells foreign leaders where they stand in relation to the crown. It tells the royal family how they are positioned within their own future. It tells the world what the monarchy wants it to believe about stability and continuity. The gold place cards are not decorative. They are final. Each one is the result of negotiation between protocol officers, senior advisors, and household officials who understand that even the smallest change can be interpreted globally. So when a card is moved, or a seat is taken incorrectly, it is not a mistake in furniture placement. It is a disruption in meaning. And meaning, inside the monarchy, is everything. Tonight, one of those meanings was quietly disturbed. And no one in the room could ignore it. Princess Charlotte occupies a unique space in the modern royal family. She is not just a member of the Wales household. She is a figure the public is already emotionally invested in. From her earliest appearances, she has drawn attention, not because she seeks it, but because she represents continuity. A rare sense of stability in a changing monarchy. But behind the public image is something more structured. Her life is being carefully shaped. Every appearance she makes is part of a long-term introduction into royal responsibility. Not rushed. Not forced. But intentional. She is being gradually introduced into a world where visibility is duty, not choice. And tonight's banquet was one of the clearest steps in that process. A state banquet is not just an event. It is entry into statecraft. A child sitting in that room is not a guest in the usual sense. They are a symbol in formation. Which is why her assigned seat mattered. It was not about comfort. It was about placement in history's camera frame. And that is why, when that seat was briefly taken, it created a ripple no one could ignore. Inside Windsor Castle, information does not travel loudly. It moves through staff networks built on discretion. A senior household aide approached King Charles quietly. No urgency in voice. No visible panic. Just a brief exchange of words that changed the direction of the evening. Charles did not react outwardly. He rarely does. But those who understand him know that stillness is not absence of response. It is control. He understood immediately what had occurred. And he understood what it meant. He rose and moved toward the banquet table. No disruption followed him. No announcement. Just movement. Because when the monarch moves inside his own institution, the institution adjusts around him. He reached the area where the seating issue had occurred. And with calm precision, he addressed it. No raised voice. No confrontation. Just correction. A reminder delivered in the quiet language of authority. And the room shifted. Not visibly, but structurally. Because everyone understood what was happening. And more importantly, who was responding. Before the situation could fully settle, another presence arrived. The Prince of Wales. William had not seen the incident directly. He had been informed as he moved through the reception line. And something about what he heard changed his direction instantly. Because this was not about protocol alone. It was about his children. For years, William and Catherine have built a carefully controlled path for their children's public lives. Every appearance is considered. Every public moment is measured. Nothing is left to chance. Not because of control, but because of protection. So when that carefully constructed path was disturbed, even briefly, William responded not as a future king first, but as a father. He arrived at the table. And his presence changed the emotional weight of the moment. Not through aggression, but through certainty. With both the reigning king and the future king now aligned, the message was no longer subtle. It was absolute. The correction was completed. The seat was restored. And the structure of the evening stabilized again. To most people, this entire situation may sound exaggerated. A seat. A misunderstanding. A correction. But inside the monarchy, nothing exists in isolation. A chair at a state banquet is not about comfort. It is about visibility. It is about how the world interprets relationships, priorities, and future direction. When a child of the future king is placed in a certain position, it becomes part of a narrative being observed globally. Diplomats notice it. Historians record it. Media interprets it. So if that position is altered, even briefly, it creates a version of the narrative that may not reflect intention. And narratives, once formed, are difficult to erase. That is why the correction mattered. Not emotionally, but structurally. Because the monarchy does not just manage events. It manages interpretation. And interpretation becomes legacy. Once the correction was made, the banquet continued exactly as planned. Guests smiled. Music played. Speeches were delivered. To the outside world, nothing unusual had happened. But inside the royal system, moments like this do not disappear. They are absorbed. Processed. Filed into the institutional memory of how boundaries are maintained. King Charles later spoke privately with both William and Camilla. The conversations were calm, measured, and focused not on blame, but on continuity. Because the monarchy cannot afford visible fractures. Not in public. Not in front of global leaders. And not in its own internal narrative. William, satisfied that the correction had been made, did not escalate the moment further. Camilla, composed as ever, understood the weight of what had occurred and responded with restraint rather than resistance. No confrontation followed. But understanding settled in its place. Because in this institution, silence is often the final stage of resolution. By the time official photographs were taken, everything appeared perfect. The arrangement was restored. The symmetry returned. The monarchy presented itself exactly as intended. Stable. Unified. Controlled. But what the photographs did not show was the invisible sequence behind them. The staff member who quietly approached the king. The king's silent correction. The prince's immediate response. The restoration of a single seat that carried far more meaning than it should have. Because in truth, the monarchy is not just what is seen. It is what is prevented from being seen. And that night at Windsor Castle, what was prevented from becoming visible was a disruption in the carefully constructed narrative of the next generation. Princess Charlotte sat in her place. The gold card remained where it had been designed to be. And the future, at least in that moment, stayed exactly where it was meant to. Not by accident, but by control. And in the royal family, control is not just tradition. It is survival.